I never loved you, the CEO said on their honeymoon. Her response changed everything. The waves crashed against the shore as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the Maldivian sky in shades of amber and rose. It should have been the most romantic moment of Elena's life. Instead, she sat frozen on the beach, her husband's words echoing in her mind like shattered glass. I never loved you, Elena. This marriage was always about business. Marcus Thorne stood before her in his impeccably tailored suit, his expression as cold as the day they'd met 6 months ago. The CEO of Thorne Industries was known for his ruthless business tactics, but Elena had believed foolishly, perhaps, that beneath the hardened exterior was a man capable of warmth. She looked down at the wedding ring on her finger, its diamond catching the dying light. 24 hours ago, she'd stood at the altar believing she was marrying a man who, while reserved, might eventually love her. Now she knew the truth. Your father's company was on the verge of bankruptcy. Marcus continued, his tone matter-of-fact, as if he were discussing a quarterly report rather than destroying his new wife's heart. I needed the merger. You were convenient. The word hung in the air between them like poison. Convenient, as if she were nothing more than a stapler or a filing cabinet, a tool to be used and discarded when no longer needed. Elena felt something crack inside her, but it wasn't her heart breaking. It was something else entirely. Something that had been building beneath the surface of their whirlwind courtship, beneath the polite smiles and careful conversations. It was clarity. Pure, crystalline clarity that cut through the fog of her romantic delusions. She thought back to their first meeting in his corner office, the way he'd assessed her like a balance sheet. She remembered their dates, always at restaurants convenient to his office, always ending precisely at 9 p.m. so he could return to work. She recalled how he'd proposed with the efficiency of a business transaction, presenting the ring in its box as if it were a contract awaiting her signature. The signs had been there all along. She'd simply chosen not to see them, painting over the cracks with the colors of hope and possibility. Elena stood up slowly, brushing the sand from her designer dress, a dress Marcus had paid for. She realized now with bitter irony. When she looked at Marcus, her eyes were dry and surprisingly steady. Thank you, she said. Marcus frowned, clearly thrown off balance. This wasn't the reaction he'd anticipated. He'd expected tears, perhaps even hysterics. He'd prepared himself for anger or pleading. But gratitude? Excuse me. Thank you for your honesty. Elena's voice was calm, almost serene. I appreciate you telling me now rather than wasting years of my life pretending this was something it wasn't. That's it? Marcus couldn't hide his surprise, and for a moment his carefully constructed mask slipped. No tears? No pleading? Elena laughed softly, the sound carrying over the ocean breeze. It was a laugh without humor, tinged with something darker. Liberation, perhaps, or the sharp edge of newfound power. What would that accomplish? You've made your position clear. Now let me make mine equally clear. She slipped the ring off her finger and held it up between them. The diamond glittered mockingly in the fading light, a symbol of promises never truly made. I may have married you under false pretenses, believing this could become something real, but I'm not the naive girl you think I am. My father's company isn't bankrupt because of poor management, Marcus. It's bankrupt because someone has been systematically sabotaging our contracts and stealing our clients for the past 18 months. Marcus's expression shifted slightly, the first crack in his carefully maintained composure. His eyes narrowed and Elena could see his mind beginning to work. Calculating, assessing. I've spent the last 3 months investigating. Elena continued, her voice gaining strength with each word. Quietly, of course. While you were courting me with your cold efficiency, taking me to those perfectly scheduled dinners and sending those precisely timed bouquets, I was gathering evidence. I hired private investigators, forensic accountants, and data analysts. I tracked money trails, interviewed former employees, and connected dots that no one else bothered to look for. She paused, watching the realization dawn across Marcus's face. Would you like to know what I found? Elena pulled her phone from her purse and turned the screen toward him. Marcus's face paled as he recognized the documents. Internal memos, email chains, financial records, transaction histories that should have been impossible to obtain. Your COO, Richard Pearson, the man you trust more than anyone, else in your organization has been embezzling from Thorn Industries for 2 years. He siphoned off over $15 million through shell companies and fake vendor contracts. He used those funds to systematically destroy my father's company, knowing you'd see it as an opportunity for acquisition. He knew your pattern, Marcus. He knew you couldn't resist a good deal, especially one that came with strategic market advantages. The sun had nearly set now, and in the growing darkness, Elena could see Marcus processing this information, his brilliant mind working through the implications, tracing the connections she'd already made. But here's what you don't know, Elena continued, her voice dropping lower, more dangerous. Richard plans to frame you for the embezzlement once the merger is complete. He has a buyer lined up for the company, your company, at a fraction of its worth. He's been building a case against you for months, planting evidence in your personal accounts, creating a paper trail that leads directly to your door. When the authorities come knocking, and they will, they'll find everything pointing to you. Richard will play the shocked, betrayed partner who discovered his CEO's criminal activities. He'll offer to buy the company from the government auction for pennies, on the dollar, restructure it, and walk away with everything you've built over the past 15 years. Marcus stood silent, the ocean wind tugging at his jacket. For the first time since Elena had known him, he looked genuinely shaken. His hands clenched at his sides, and she could see the muscles in his jaw working as he processed the magnitude of the betrayal. "Why?" he finally asked, his voice rough. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because despite your confession, despite your cruelty, I don't believe in letting innocent people get destroyed by schemes, even people who've hurt me." Elena pocketed her phone. "And because I want you to understand something crucial. I may have needed you to save my father's company, but you need me more than you realize. Without the evidence I've gathered, Richard will destroy you within the next 2 weeks. The timeline is already in motion. The authorities have received an anonymous tip from Richard, of course, and they're opening an investigation into Thorn Industries' financial practices. You have maybe 10 days before the warrant comes through." She started walking back toward their villa, her heels leaving small impressions in the sand that the tide would soon wash away. Then she paused and turned back, her silhouette framed against the darkening sky. "Here's my response to your honeymoon confession, Marcus. I'm not going to cry or beg or make a scene that confirms whatever low opinion you have of women who dare to have emotions. Instead, I'm going to propose a real partnership, not the pretend marriage you envisioned, where I play the decorative wife who legitimizes your business dealings and makes you look more human at charity galas, not the cold arrangement where you get what you need and I'm supposed to be grateful for the scraps of attention you throw my way. I'm talking about an actual business alliance between equals." The word equals seemed to hang in the air, heavy with implication. "I have the evidence to save your company," Elena said. "Detailed records, witness testimonies, financial forensics that took 3 months and a significant portion of my personal savings to compile. You have the resources and the business infrastructure to save mine. We can help each other, or we can destroy each other. The evidence I have doesn't just implicate Richard. In the wrong hands, it could be twisted to make you look complicit. I could hand it over to the authorities with my own narrative, one that paints you as Richard's partner rather than his victim. Or I could testify on your behalf, provide the context and timeline that proves your innocence." Marcus's expression darkened. "That sounds like a threat." "No, Marcus. It's a fact. I'm simply laying out the reality of our situation with the same cold efficiency you used when you told me you never loved me. How does it feel, by the way, being on the receiving end of brutal honesty?" She didn't wait for his answer. "Tomorrow morning I'm flying back to New York on the first available flight. You can join me, and we can work together to stop Richard and build something stronger than either of our companies alone. We can turn this marriage into a real partnership.
One based on mutual benefit and honest
dealing rather than manipulation and hidden agendas. Or you can stay here nursing your cold heart and your wounded pride and watch everything you've built crumble while Richard laughs all the way to the bank. Your choice, Marcus, but I need your decision by sunrise." Elena walked away, leaving Marcus alone on the darkening beach with his thoughts and the waves and the ruins of the carefully controlled narrative he'd constructed around their marriage. The next morning, Elena was packing her suitcase when she heard a knock on the villa door. She checked her watch, 5:47 a.m. She'd expected either silence or a call from Marcus's lawyer. The knock surprised her. She opened the door to find Marcus standing there, still in yesterday's suit, now thoroughly wrinkled. His hair was disheveled, his tie was gone, and there were shadows under his eyes that suggested he hadn't slept all night. He looked more human than she'd ever seen him. "I made some calls," he said without preamble, his voice hoarse. "Confirmed everything you said about Richard. The shell companies, the embezzlement, all of it. I had my personal attorney, someone Richard doesn't know about, run a parallel investigation through the night. The evidence is damning." Elena nodded, unsurprised. She didn't move aside to let him in, simply waited. "I also did some thinking," Marcus continued, and for the first time since she'd known him, there was something uncertain in his expression, something vulnerable that he seemed to be struggling to keep under control. "About what you said. About partnership. About equals. And? You were right. I need you. Without your evidence and your testimony, Richard will destroy everything." He took a breath, seeming to brace himself for what came next. "But there's something else. Last night, standing on that beach, watching you walk away with your head held high, refusing to be broken by my cruelty, I realized I've been lying to myself even more than I've been lying to you." Elena raised an eyebrow but said nothing, giving him space to continue. "I told myself this marriage was purely business, because it was safer than admitting the truth," Marcus said, the words coming with obvious difficulty. "I convinced myself I was incapable of love because I've built my entire life around control and logic. Emotions are messy. They're unpredictable. They make you vulnerable. So I eliminated them from the equation, or at least I thought I did." He ran a hand through his disheveled hair, a gesture so unlike his usual composed self that Elena felt something shift in her chest despite her resolution to remain unmoved. "But the truth is, I've been falling for you since the day you walked into my office and challenged my merger proposal. Do you remember that day? I'd presented what I thought was a generous offer, and instead of being grateful, you tore it apart point by point. You showed me 3 different ways. I was undervaluing your father's patents in 2 strategies I hadn't considered for market expansion. You were brilliant and fearless, and you looked at me like I was just another businessman, not the great Marcus Thorne that everyone else treats with such careful deference." Elena did remember. It had been 3 weeks before he'd asked her to dinner, and she'd assumed he'd been angry at her boldness. "You were the only person who ever looked at me and saw past the CEO to the man underneath," Marcus continued. "It terrified me. So I did what I always do when something threatens my control. I tried to contain it, to reduce it to manageable terms, a business arrangement, a strategic marriage, something I could understand and control. So you decided to hurt me first," Elena said quietly. "Before I could hurt you?" "Yes." Marcus's admission was barely above a whisper. "I've watched my parents destroy each other with love. I've seen colleagues compromise their judgment and ruin their lives for emotions. I swore I'd never let myself be that vulnerable. But in trying to protect myself, I became the kind of man I've always despised, a coward who hurts people preemptively." He looked directly at her, and she saw something in his eyes she'd never seen before. Genuine remorse, tinged with fear. "I'm sorry, Elena, truly sorry. Not because I need your help with Richard, though I do. Not because it's strategically advantageous to apologize, though it is. But because you deserved better than what I gave you. You deserved honesty from the beginning. You deserved a partner, not a manipulator." Elena studied him for a long moment, weighing his words against his actions, his present sincerity against his past coldness. The old Elena, the one from yesterday morning who'd still believed in fairy tales, might have accepted immediately, eager to believe that love could conquer all. But she was different now, stronger, wiser. "I appreciate your honesty now, Marcus, and your apology," she said carefully. "But words aren't enough. Trust isn't rebuilt with pretty speeches. no matter how sincere they sound in the moment. Trust is built through consistent action over time. You shattered something yesterday, and it can't be glued back together overnight. I know. Marcus straightened his shoulders, some of his usual composure returning, which is why I'm not asking you to forgive me right now. I'm not asking you to suddenly believe I love you or to pretend yesterday didn't happen. Instead, I'm proposing we start over. Not as a business arrangement, not as a fake marriage, but as partners who earn each other's respect and trust through actions, not words. If love comes from that foundation, then we'll have built it on something real and lasting. If it doesn't, then at least we'll have built something worthwhile, a genuine partnership that benefits us both. Elena considered this. It was logical, practical, and surprisingly mature. It was also terrifying, because it left the future genuinely uncertain. I'll agree on several conditions, she said finally. First, we save both our companies together, as equals. You don't make major decisions without consulting me, and I don't move forward without your input. No more secrets, no more hidden agendas, no more games. Agreed. Second, we go to counseling, both for the business partnership and the marriage. If we're going to make this work, we need professional help to navigate it. I won't pretend to know how to rebuild trust after something like this. And I don't think you do either. Marcus hesitated for only a moment. Agreed. Third, Elena stepped closer, looking directly into his eyes. If you ever lie to me again, if you ever manipulate me or try to use me as a pawn in whatever game you're playing, I won't just walk away. I'll take everything you've built and turn it into something better without you. I have the skills, the knowledge, and now the connections to do it. Don't test me on this, Marcus. For the first time since she'd known him, Marcus Thorne smiled, a real, genuine smile that reached his eyes and transformed his entire face. I wouldn't dream of it, he said. And frankly, I'd expect nothing less from the woman who spent 3 months quietly gathering evidence while I thought I was the one in control. Elena felt an answering smile tug at her lips, despite her determination to remain guarded. Good. Then let's go save your company, expose Richard, and show the business world what happens when two people choose partnership over pretense. One more thing, Marcus said as they prepared to leave. He picked up the wedding ring Elena had left on the table the night before. When you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'd like to give this back to you. Not as a symbol of a business arrangement or a strategic merger, but as a promise of something real. Something earned rather than assumed. Elena took the ring and slipped it into her pocket. When I'm ready, I'll wear it again. But you'll have to earn that moment, Marcus Thorne. Every single day. I intend to, he replied. And something in his voice suggested he understood the magnitude of what he was committing to. As they left the villa together and headed to the airport, the morning sun was rising over the ocean, casting everything in golden light. The same beach where Marcus had shattered her illusions now bore witness to something new, beginning something tentative and uncertain, but built on honesty rather than lies. Their honeymoon may have been a disaster, but in its ashes, something stronger was beginning to grow, a partnership that could potentially become something more. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but they were walking it together as equals, one careful step at a time toward a future they would build together, rather than one either of them could control alone.